Hey, team players, we're coming at you in a pre-recorded video because there is so much action on the New York Jets that is insanely in the bettor's favor that we could not wait until the next live. We needed to get this out immediately and let it stay in perpetuity in a way that a pre-recorded video does and a live does not. So that's what you're in the first half of this video. The awesome money and opportunities that are here on the Jets with the math being behind it. And in the second half of this video, we are going to jump into the fantasy outlook of the individual Jets. This episode, all Jets right now. So let's jump into how we do our math and what makes us unique here at Local Football Flavor compared to the rest of YouTube and why we think this is the better way of going about it. The majority of analysts have their own algorithm or thought process that they put into an equation and boom, spit it out. We will operate under a little bit of a different mindset. That mindset being this, that the market is always right. Just like in investing, there is enough indicators out there in the betting markets that you can get knowledge to be able to see where there are incongruencies in the markets and how to maximize them accordingly. And the Jets have a ton of these. So I'm going to start off with the most fun off-season prop bet, which is win total. As we're recording this, the current win total projection for the New York Jets is at 9.5. Now, the way that Vegas has come up with these projections, for virtually every team, this is 100% provable, is they look at what are the spreads of every single game out there and then give weights to them in terms of your likelihood of winning. For instance, if you're very likely to win, you might have a spread of 7. Or if you have a spread of -7, you have a very small percentage of winning. So long story short, they'd be like Pac-Man. They just gobble up all those percentages and then boom, added together, this is what we believe your win total should be. And there's logic behind that if you're in a sport that's long. Exactly how you should be doing this for baseball. But it does not work in smaller, condensed seasons. And the NFL, 18 games, is a smaller, condensed season. So there has to be a better way of going about and figuring out what the math should be. And the answer is you have to look at the fact that you can't win a percentage of the game, period. So even though you're a 60% chance of likelihood of winning, you only get credit for that 60% instead of the whole win. So what you actually have to look at deeper is how many times are they the favorite? Now, granted, you know they're not going to win all of them, but it gives you a much stronger indication. And when you look at the Jets, the same Jets that had Saleh being called for his head to be fired just a couple of months ago, the same Jets that, well, quite frankly, they imploded like crazy last year, right? There's no other nice way to say it about it. It was a disaster. That same team, plus a non-injured Aaron Rodgers, is favored in 14 games. That's a 1 and a 4. 14 games this team is favored in. Now, granted, a lot of them are under a field goal, but they're favored nonetheless. So when we compute the math, we go, wow, this team should be winning a lot of football games. Over 11.5, even when you're doing your Pac-Man system. How can you have a line at 9.5? That is basically begging you to take that bet and take the money. And we don't see a scenario where over 9.5 does not hit. We're playing this action at 10 even and 10.5 because of the value that is there. Now, I know so many people just watching this just said, yeah, of course the value's there right now. Roger ain't hurt yet. Or option 2, hey, Joe, have you ever looked at the stat that says any quarterback over the age of 36 who's missed 14 or more consecutive games basically never recovers? All of that is true. Not fighting it. But the prime example we're going to use here was Peyton Manning. He goes out to Denver, throwing rainbow lollipops, no real talent, but Von Miller won him that Super Bowl. That defense took them the distance. And when you look at what the defense is projected to be for the New York Jets, it is projected to allow the third least amount of points in the league. They are looking to play football in a defensive system. And it makes sense. Saul is their coach. That's what he is. He's the defensive guy. The other protection you have on this 9.5 number is that last year Wilson was horrible. There's no way around it. They got rid of him. They have an actual competent, a top 5 backup quarterback, probably better than a lot of the starters, or at least the bottom half of the starters in this league right now in Tyrod Taylor. So you add this all up and say when Rodgers went down last year, it cost them about 7.5 to 6.5 points per game playing without Aaron Rodgers, going down to Wilson. This year, that gap is going to be about 2 to 3.5 on the downgrade to Tyrod Taylor, depending upon how good Rodgers was before he went down. So when we look at this and say the risk of falling off the cliff is much less, the defense is projected to be lights out. Yeah, this is a pretty easy call here for over 9.5 wins. The next big fun bet is, does the team make the playoffs? Love these bets. I think that the 4-team parlays of what you believe the division winners to be to just flat out make the playoffs is one of the best bets and funnest bets for a long you can do in all of the offseason. I love these bets. So, is the Jets going to be one of these teams that we think can make the playoffs? Or let's even take it a step higher. Do we think the Jets are one of the teams that can win a division? It's the division with the Bills and Miami. New England's there too. But, that's the division. So, Miami's got a lot of things going for them. It's really hot. They run fast. And they supposedly had the smartest man in the universe as their coach. Okay? And the Bills have Josh Allen. Possibly the best quarterback in the league, not named Mahomes. So, those are really big, stiff competitors. But when we actually crank out the numbers and look at the East here, the Jets are the favored percentage winner of this. The Jets are over 30% likely to win this division. And remember, on an even balance, everyone should be at 25%. The Jets are over 30. But the interesting part here is when we look at the actual betting, the actual bet you can make, who's going to win the East, the Jets are paying out as if they're going to finish in third, over plus 200. And you're actually getting paid out greater than the risk. That should never happen for the lead dog in a bet. The most likely to happen should never pay out more than the risk because that's how houses make their money. So that's a lot of really, really good value. So the official bet is, yes, Jets make the playoffs. But there is a ton of extra juice and a ton of value if you hit Jets to win the East. Now, obviously, we're doing this episode choosing all of the Jets for a reason. These are some of the easiest numbers, and they're the most lopsided of any team out there. And Rodgers is the linchpin of this. And I said in the beginning, as you saw in the title, 3 massive bets for the Jets. And some of you are going to be out there trying to jump ahead, thinking that the answer is going to be, he just talked up Rodgers. There's no way this scenario is as likely without Rodgers, which, again, it isn't, but it is still likely enough to be talking about and probable. So he's going to take a Rodgers for comeback player of the year. No. And we're not doing that as our third bet for 2 reasons. First, the juice just isn't there. And second, there is an alternative bet that covers all of the essence of Rodgers being comeback player of the year with way better payouts. And that prop bet is, will the New York Jets throw a touchdown in every game? Obviously, if you believe Rodgers is going to be comeback player of the year, that's baked into the equation. You're going to have to throw touchdowns to be comeback player of the year. The difference is plus 750. And you lose the risk of what happens if Rodgers gets hurt again or if Rodgers gets benched. Well, now we got Tyrod Taylor, a very competent backup, as I mentioned before, who's capable of throwing touchdowns. You also have an insanely upgraded receiver room compared to what they have. Last year, it was basically Wilson and some dudes. Now, there's legitimate talent in that receiver room that, quite frankly, the Jets have not had in a long, long time. So, the likelihood of them throwing a pass every single game, yes, yes, yes. So, those are your three main bets. Over 9.5. Make the playoffs, passing touchdown every game. Let's jump into the fantasy portion that we said we were going to cover here. As we mentioned earlier, the Jets are going to be playing football very different than last year. They're going to be playing winning football. That's a good thing. But we got to look at how they're going to be winning these games and how they're going to be using their usage. The number one concern of this coaching staff has to be, and reasonably so, is don't let Rodgers get hurt. As a result, the passing effort is going to get diminished. This is going to be a team where we see pass to get the lead and then let the defense dominate as you run out the clock. That is what this team is built for. They have shown it with all of their offseason actions in terms of personnel and the way that they're conducting their team. Fine. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, accept what they're doing. Which means you unfortunately have to downgrade all of their passing attack. They're going to score touchdowns. And having Garrett Wilson will put up numbers, but we're projecting him to be outside of the top 35. He's going to give you amazing first halves. You're going to be watching Monday Night Football. You're going to be thinking you're getting a Monday Night Miracle. You're going to be set until halftime, and he doesn't do anything in the second half. It's the way the Jets are built. They are set up in a scenario where if I put Rodgers in undue risk when we have a lead in the second half and he gets hurt, career's over. Every person in that front office knows that. So what are they going to do? Here, Tyrod. No, you're not benching Rodgers because that's a PR nightmare. Okay, what's my other choice? Let's give the ball to Breece Hall. And that's what's going to happen. Breece Hall is going to be off the chain this year. I'm on the record on my live saying earlier I was worried about Breece Hall before all the data came out. And the reason for that was this. Breece Hall had an insanely amount of carries last year and percentage of his offense, and it just didn't seem likely for that to happen again. And it still doesn't. The key difference, though, and what the market has come out and told us is that's okay because the quality of his touches are going to be exponentially better. Breece Hall should be the second running back off the board. And I argue that he should go ahead of some of the receivers that people are talking about ahead of him, particularly Jamar Chase. So when we look at what we project the numbers to be for Breece, we have him roughly 30 points ahead of his next closest logical competition of Bijan and Gibbs. We're talking about, yes, Breece should be a first-round asset, and if someone takes Bijan in front of him, you just won the lottery. So, yeah, I get it. You got to have a top 8 pick to even have a chance at Hall, but Hall will be a guy that delivers because of the quality that you're going to get there. We do not believe that Garrett Wilson is going to be worth a top 15 pick. Period. No other way around that. I don't even have him as a top 15 receiver. Like I said, we have him outside the top 35 based upon the fact that the volume isn't going to be there the way that it needs to be. The other major thing that Garrett Wilson has going against him is they just made a much better receiving room. Just like Breece Hall could not have had a bigger share of the offense, Garrett Wilson could not have a bigger share of the passing attack. So you add this all together, Wilson is the one who loses out in this equation. Hall massively wins. And when we look at the quarterback game overall, Rodgers doesn't run, and it's not expected for him to run at all this year. That is a major deterrent in the fantasy football game. Don't get me wrong. It can be fine for real-life wins. I think it will be. But it's not going to be great in saying, hey, he's who I want to go out and target. We got him about quarterback 17. He'll be a great streamer. Pick him up when someone's on a bye. But Rodgers is not someone that we're saying build your team around. Quite frankly, we only say that on 6 quarterbacks anyway. So the fact that you're in a 12-man league, you're like, oh, I can pick him up as a second. We're saying just let him be a streamer. Pick him up the week of your bye and go from there. So team players, we love you being with us. Click that subscribe button, and we'll see you live Tuesdays at 4 p.m.